Was I not supposed to ding till the Pledge of Allegiance started? Because everybody, okay, well, rookie up here. So we'll get the flag up, out of order. There we go, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and do we know anyone who needs our thoughts today that you'd like to share? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just take a moment of silence and think about everything that's going on in the world. All right, thank you. All right, now we'll go back to the beginning. Sorry, I thought that the bell was like the cup at the wedding where you just got everybody's attention. Not that you were all going to kiss each other, but I thought that was just the attention getter, not the actual everybody stand up and look at me at the same time. So I'll be better by July, I promise. All right, so we would like to have our guests today. Are you going to grab a microphone, Allison, please? Jim Patton has a guest.
And I want to remind both of these special guests that we do have what we call a household membership, where a husband and wife can both be members.
I've heard about that, yeah. Anyway, I'm particularly pleased to have my wife Diane with me because she's had to be my coach the last 6 weeks, but my right knee replacement's doing well. Thank you.
And Lisa Heddens.
I have my husband, John Magley, here again, and you mentioned about family, household, and so he looked at me and he said, I'll do it. So we'll be working on that. And since I have the microphone, I'm going to take a second to say you've got on your table for Special Olympics, if anyone else would like to sign up to help out on Thursday, May 21st, please sign up on the sheet. And lastly, for social media, if you would share your thoughts about why you like Rotary or why somebody should join, please fill these out as well. Thank you.
Great, and then I'll introduce our last two guests, Ada and Ian McKilligan. Ada is one of our speakers today, and I'll introduce her later, and her father. So let's welcome Ada and Ida. Okay, now we're ready for the welcome song. Welcome to Fromming's Rotary, London and London with Paris. Glad to USA. We're glad that you are here today. Back again whenever you're near. Join us. Thanks, Louie. Appreciate that. All right, a few announcements before we get started. Don't forget RILA is coming up. I think it's April 30th is the deadline to apply. It is at Grinnell this year, July 20-something to 31. 26. I did take an eye test. I'm almost there, but. And so next up, Lisa mentioned Special Olympics. Sign-ups are on your table. That's May 21st. And then our next one, I believe, is the scholarship. So that was sent out last week in the weekly email. I do know it's at Ames and Gilbert High Schools on their scholarship list, but if you know anyone, please encourage them to apply.
And we are up to 5 that have now submitted.
We have 5 who have submitted for those scholarships, and that is a partnership between the Morning Club and our club. All right, and then tree planting. This was one of Jamie's goals this year, was to plant trees, and we have that opportunity to do that with the Arbor Day tree planting, which is this Saturday. So there is a sign-up sheet on your table as well for that. I've done that a couple times, and they put you in a team, and you go out and plant trees. They pick up. They have dropped the trees in the location, and you are helping to get those usually along city streets and sidewalks. So it looks like you're meeting at the corner of Welbeck and Harrison, 9 a.m. on this Saturday. And did I see Randy here? Oh, there we go. Randy's going to come up and give us a membership update.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Tammy. Sorry I'm late. Didn't mean to fret you. All right. So first of all, big thank you to all of you who have submitted names on behalf of our membership campaign. I'd planned on giving you a little more frequent updates, but frankly, I got my project started a little later than I'd planned. But we sent out over 60 emails on Saturday morning. The list right now is more like 85 or so in our what I'll call prospect list. But I was only able to track down contact for 60 plus. I think we may have a slide that's going to roll through who we reached out to. We've got some really positive feedback. Just since Saturday morning, we've had active contact with 11 of our prospects. We have 5 confirmed club visits and another 2 that are likely to join as club visits. We'll have visitors here on May 4th, visitors here May 18th, one scheduled out into September for folks who are interested in membership in Rotary. And really couldn't have done this without you populating names. So thank you for your help with that. And I'm so encouraged by these initial results that don't be surprised when I come back to you for more names, because what it tells me is that folks are interested to be thought of for club membership. The email was basic. Hey, you've been recommended by members in our club because of who you are or what you do. We do some service projects. Tell them a little bit about Rotary Service Above Self motto. And I did a little bit of massaging to a personal letter. So if I knew any contacts or had some connection, I added a little feature. But great response. We've only had 3 people say, hey, sorry, not for me. One of them is because he's leaving the area to go take a position out of state in June and won't be around. A couple of others who, one had been a member but just doesn't have the time to commit. Largely really positive feedback. And so we've got a built list now that we'll be following up with. So any comments or questions? Go ahead. Yeah.
Should some of us, if we know them, follow up with an email or something saying we've heard?
Yeah, wouldn't be a problem at all. That's one of the reasons why we projected the names. I think it's a little small here. We can provide some more updates. Frankly, we haven't given everyone a ton of time to respond, but I don't think there's any problem with that. The reason why we have the names is because someone in the club gave them to us in the first place. I think now that you know they've been touched or will be touched, there are a few names where I got some email bounce backs and we're trying to get that resolved. But frankly, any positive words about the club or joining us, you know what you're about. It's a great opportunity. So I'd say yes, positive follow-up would be helpful. Any questions? all in all, I think really positive. I'm confident we're going to get some new members out of this campaign. I'm ever more confident that we've got a little bit of a recipe for future follow-up. So be thinking about others in your circle, neighbors, colleagues, sons and daughters of friends. You know, just be broadly thinking. You're not going to have to make the initial contact. We'll send a personalized email telling them they've been referred to the club, and we'll see if we can get a few more people here to experience what we've got and potentially join our group. Great. Thanks for your help.
Yeah. Big round of applause for Randy for that work. He is the membership committee, so thank you, Randy. All right, it's my pleasure now to introduce Ada McKilligan. She's a freshman at Gilbert High School and is the youngest first place winner of the MLK Day Essay Contest, which our Rotary Club helps to sponsor. Her essay is titled A Generation of Hope. We'd also like to welcome her father, Ian, and a special thank you to Gilbert School District for having an in-service day so Ada could join us in person. So, Ada?
Good afternoon. Before I begin, I would like to thank you all for your generosity in the scholarship. It'll go to my college. I'll be saving it to help fund my education, the books I might need, and I do greatly appreciate it. I also appreciate being given the chance to share this essay with you. All my life, I have felt the responsibility to leave this earth better than I found it. I have seen unnecessary problems and terrible hypocrisies walk unnoticed by the majority of the public, accepted as commonplace and defined as the norm. I refuse to remain willingly ignorant of society's problems, choosing instead to acknowledge and contribute to their resolution. There are many reasons as to why, but today I will explain to you one of the most important, in honor of, in my opinion, one of the most important men born, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. My school hallways can be likened to a battleground with slurs hurled like projectiles onto those who are guilty of nothing but the crime of existence. Inspired by Dr. King and many other trailblazers of justice, I feel a deep responsibility to shut them down, and so I do. I try my hardest to always be kind, no matter who is being mistreated, and to accept everyone as they are, as Dr. King once wished to be accepted. Kindness is free, and so is acceptance, but hurting others should never be accepted, and silence is just another form of acceptance. I know that by taking a stand, no matter how small, it's a way of paying tribute to the principles he taught. I believe the world would be a better place if we all understood how selfless he truly was and how much this selflessness and bravery he demonstrated has changed our lives. Far too many of us don't understand the impacts Dr. King had, not just on African Americans, but on every single one of us living in this country today. Because of his activism, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a landmark federal law that outlawed discriminatory voting practices like poll taxes and literacy tests, was passed. Before that law existed, our ability to vote in some states depended on whether we could read or whether we had enough money, things that should never be allowed to decide someone's rights. More shocking is the fact that this is not ancient history. This was common in the 1960s, a mere 60 years ago. Even our own state was not immune to this. We had our own de facto laws discriminating against our fellow citizens. It's a keystone of American values that all people, no matter their race, gender, economic status, or ability, are represented and represented fairly. We stand for fairness, for equality, and for the belief that everyone deserves a voice. But the truth is, we were not living up to our own values until Dr. King pushed the nation to change. Understanding this made me realize how easy it is to take my rights and freedoms for granted, especially when I wasn't alive to see how hard people fought for them. Dr. King's legacy is not confined to the history books. It is alive in the very opportunities I am afforded today. I walk the same school halls, yet I can join student council, run for leadership roles, and speak my mind without the fear that my background, status, or identity will serve as a limit on my potential. When I consider the shift of the Voting Rights Act he inspired, I am confronted with the profound realization that a right I will soon exercise, the vote, was paid for in the courage and, in some cases, the blood of countless Americans. This knowledge compels me to not only pay attention in my history and government classes, but to value the freedoms people fought and died for, lest I take the ultimate sacrifice for granted. I'm honored to have him to look up to as an inspiring figure. I have a dream as well. I dream that one day the people of our country will have love, not hate, nestled deep inside their souls. There is no division, no warring parties, no fear of our protectors, no murders, and no victims. I dream of a day when we lift each other up instead of cutting each other down, and of a day when we can be content with our leaders and content with ourselves. All Martin Luther King Jr. wanted was to see love and to see freedom. That's all we should want. The First Amendment gave him and gives all of us the right to peaceful protest. We have the right to declare what we believe to be unjust, and we have the right to challenge it. If we don't use these rights, then nothing will change, and we will become oppressed yet again. Today, as you hear this, I hope you're looking back on everyday instances in your life that would not have been possible without the ultimate sacrifice given by this man. There's a possibility that I wouldn't even have been given the chance to meet some of my closest friends due to the segregated state of our country that he helped end. He drastically and dramatically altered all of our lives, touching the fibers of our future with his bloodied hand from the past. He has impacted all of our lives, and for this, we should be grateful. For in changing our lives, it cost him his own. The dream of Martin Luther King Jr. was not an endpoint, but a mere beginning of the path we still must walk. We owe a debt, not just to him, but to all of those who fought for their and our freedom that can only be repaid by following in their footsteps. By allowing the lessons of his protests, his speech, and his very life to fade from our curriculum and therefore our consciousness, we risk more than historical blind spots. We risk complacency, allowing the past to become our future. Let us choose to, instead, be the generation that moves forward, fights for its values, keeps its dream alive through our actions, and speaks its truth. After all, to speak with truth is to speak with freedom, and these words you have heard are the freest. I'd like to once again thank you all, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Ada, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Several of us heard it in January, but we appreciate. Thank you. It was great. And we have posted her speech. I believe it is on our website, the whole speech. So thank you again. It was great. And we're going to have you sign a book when you leave. We give and Chris, I'll tell you this right now too. We'll have you sign a book too. We give it, we're part of Raising Readers. And Check at 2 years old, we give out these books. We're a sponsor of that. So thank you. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Strawhacker. He's a campus planner with the Real Estate and Capital Planning Department at Iowa State University. He has led the planning and maintenance improvements to Lake LaVerne for more than 18 years. As inspiration, he keeps a small jar of sediment on his desk, a verdant bottle of 1995 Lake LaVerne. Chris graduated from Iowa State with a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture degree, lives in Ames with his wife Jill, and they have 2 sons, Jonah and Cameron, and enjoy a range of outdoor activities. Chris, and here's your...
Like Tammy said, I'm Chris Strawhacker, campus planner at Iowa State, and thanks for inviting me to talk about Lake LaVerne. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the history. People are always surprised when they learn a little bit about how Lake LaVerne came to be what it is today. I'll give you a little update on the conditions of the lake and why we chose to do a project, some of the planning that went into our planned project, and then what we mean by renewing and reimagining the lake. So if you're not familiar with Lake LaVerne, it's a small lake, about 3 acres on the south side of campus along Lincoln Way near Campus Town. If you go back and look at the lake or the College Creek area prior to the lake being constructed, it was kind of a marshy creek that ran along the southern border of campus. If you go to campus today and look, if you enter on Welch Road, you can still see the bridge guardrail that's on the left side of the image where the gentleman's walking. So the idea for Lake LaVerne was generated from a Chicago-based landscape architect. One of the original graduating members of the class of 1872, Laverne Noyes, invited O.C. Simons to campus as a gift back to Iowa State for his experience. Noyes had gone to Chicago and developed a career in manufacturing and became very successful and wanted to give back to the university or the college at the time. So he brought Simons on to develop some landscape plans for the growing campus. So Simons in 1914, the November of 1914 on campus visit, suggested that a small dam could be built on College Creek to create a small pond. So immediately the campus put a crew to work and they dammed up the creek, and by January people were skating on that creek. I don't think that was exactly what Simons and Noyes had in mind when they offered a lake. So later Noyes offered to have Simons come and develop a pond under his supervision. So by 1916, the lake was completed and it was named Lake LaVerne in his honor. The lake at that time, as we go through the slides, you'll notice is quite a bit smaller than what you see today. It was really kind of to the eastern edge of what we think of as Lake LaVerne. It was a nice addition, a beautiful addition to campus, but along with that, College Creek brought in quite a bit of sediment. So within a few years, it had started to fill in, and about 2/3 of the volume was displaced with sediment. So in 1928, engineering dean Anson Marston developed plans to restore the lake, and that included actually enlarging the lake. So the eastern portion was sort of the shape that Simons had developed, but Marston's plans essentially doubled the size of the lake. It took a few years before that plan could be developed into a project. So the Civilian Conservation Corps in the early 1930s were actually put to task to dredge the lake, enlarge it, and then at the time divert that College Creek course into a culvert under what was then called College Drive. So on the west side of the slide, or the left side of the slide, you can see College Creek going under College Drive into a culvert that actually circumvents the lake and runs along the south shore in that tan or rust-colored line before it then daylights again at the south edge, parallels Lincoln Way, and combines with the overflow from Lake LaVerne. So that culvert and that dredging addressed some of that sedimentation problem. They also stabilized the shoreline to prevent some shoreline erosion. So a couple of slides showing the amount of work that it took to do that. In the 30s, the equipment was wheelbarrows and shovels, and I always feel a little bit bad for the one guy pushing the wheelbarrow across the plank bridge while other guys are standing on the shoreline talking. I counted 3 guys on the right-hand side of the picture and up to 8 or 10 under the bridge in the background. On the slide on the right, you can see where that diverted creek kind of daylights and parallels Lincoln Way, and then combines with the overflow from Lake LaVerne. Unfortunately, there was still sediment flowing into the lake, and in 1950s, the lake needed to be dredged again. So a group of alumni stepped forward and offered to dredge the lake, restoring essentially the capacity of the original lake. About 17,000 cubic yards of sediment were removed from the lake. But as Ames continued to grow to the west, increasing stormwater continued to bring sediment to the lake. So a second culvert was constructed. So the original, the 1930s culvert is shown in the lighter tan line. The rust colored is the 1963 culvert that was installed to accommodate that additional stormwater. You can still see, if you walk to the lake today on the south edge, if you look over the overflow dam, you can still see where those culverts actually daylight into a channel. So in 1995, a third dredging project was undertaken. The lake was hydraulically dredged. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as the previous project. You can see the line, the kind of the rust-colored line. That actually is the path that a pipe was run through the culvert up College Creek to the area of the Southwest Athletic or Recreation Complex and the Arboretum, where the sediment was pumped and then dewatered and settled out. Although that project wasn't as successful at dredging, it was successful in stabilizing the North Shore. The area shown in green had eroded, so it was restored, and some granite, cobblestone, and boulders were installed as reinforcement. A groundwater well was installed on the west end of the lake to give it additional supply to replace the water that was diverted in by the creek going through the culverts. And then an aeration system was added to oxygenate that shallow lake bed. So the lake has kind of developed this 30-year maintenance cycle of dredging. So in 1995, we had a project. We're at the point where it's time to do something again. So, but we're seeing a lot of familiar problems. Eroded shoreline, a deep sediment layer. Currently, it was measured that we have an average of 1 to 3 feet of sediment across the entire lake, with some areas as deep as 6 to 8 feet of built-up sediment. That leaves us with a shallow lake of less than 3 feet on average and a deepest point of about 5 feet deep. That, combined with the high nutrient concentrations in the water, generates some excessive algae growth and aquatic plant growth that make the lake unattractive at certain times of the year. So in 2022, we completed a study that really looked at the maintenance of the lake again. Mechanical dredging, shoreline stabilization, and developing an adaptive management plan that would assess the conditions of the lake as they change, and then adapt our management plan to deal with those. We had a lot of participants, consultants from engineering and architecture firms, as well as faculty and staff, really the experts about water quality and work on campus participated. But Iowa State's history, since 1914, the Lake LaVerne area has really been a spot for recreation, traditions, and education. So as far back as those first ice skaters on the lake, the Visha canoe races, Greek Week, Polar Plunge, various academic projects have taken place at the lake. And with the condition, students have started to disregard the history and not see it as a place, as a destination to enjoy. So as we were planning, one of the donors for the project challenged us to think about ways that we could make Lake LaVerne a destination again, a place that people would like to be. So we worked with the College of Design faculty and students and identified 5 key areas that we could focus on. 2 of those were easy to do. One was addressing the algae and the sedimentation. We'd already developed a plan to do that. Another one was restoring the swans. I can't give a talk about the lake without somebody asking about Lake LaVerne's swans. So unfortunately, one of the swans had died in 2022, and we knew that we were working on planning a project, so we felt like it was a good time for the remaining swan to retire and new swans to come back after the project was completed. So Lancelot and Elaine will return once we complete our project. But that left us 3 areas to focus on as we began design. Really, places to see and be seen, places to sit, and an area with more biodiversity and native plant material. So that brought us to a renewed and reimagined Lake LaVerne. So beginning next month in May, we will start work on that dredging and shoreline stabilization work, as well as some North Shore improvements and a southeast corner improvement project. That work will be completed in November of this year, this fall. So the dredging and the shoreline stabilization, this slide shows 2 maps of pre-dredging lake depths on the left and post-dredging lake depths on the right. So each shade of blue represents 1 foot of water depth. So on the left, we have, as I said earlier, a depth of about 5 feet maximum, with an average of just under 3 feet. Our planned depths will be as much as 13 feet deep, with an average of just over 5 feet. So we'll bring the volume of the lake back to what it was in the 1930s during the work that Anson Marston designed. Providing a way for people to actually get to the lake and experience the lake. When you go to a lake, everybody wants to be close to the water. You want to be able to look into the water and see what's in the lake. Currently, that's a little bit difficult, especially if you have trouble walking on unstable slopes or on the lawn. So this project provides us the opportunity to expand the north shoreline slightly and create an accessible walk that provides additional seating in a variety of ways. We can have tables, chairs, benches, and a seat wall that will bring you visitors up close to the edge of the lake and allow you to experience the lake in a different way. The plantings, so the slides shows on the left a photo of the existing lake, and then on the right a sketch of what it will look like when this North Shore area is completed, with the additional enhanced plantings that will provide that biodiversity. So native perennials, shrubs that will attract wildlife to the area and provide an additional level of biodiversity that can be studied by students on campus. In the southeast corner of the lake, near the intersection of Lincoln Way, Morrill Road, and Lynn Avenue, a small maintenance plaza will be developed. One of the issues that we have is it's difficult to reach into the lake and clear the debris that's wind blown. The wind typically blows all of the leaves that collect in the lake, the algae that is in the lake to that southeast corner. We really don't have a space where we can actually reach out and clear that area out. So this will provide a plaza that a small excavator and a truck can be stationed so they can do that maintenance work as often as needed. When that maintenance work isn't going on, we'll still have a view, create a new open view from Lincoln Way into Lake LaVerne. In the fall, we will actually provide a connection from the north shore of the lake to the south shore across a bridge to a new amphitheater space. And it's some additional South Shore improvements that will provide more seating and a pathway along, enhance the pathway that's there along the South Shore. That portion of the project will be completed next fall in November of 2027. So that bridge connection will be named in honor of Tahira Hira, former professor and administrator at Iowa State. The bridge will have a interpretive signage and integrated lighting in the railing, so it'll be accessible at night as well. The bridge will connect over to a plaza with a performance stage and amphitheater seating terraced into the hillside with potentially 150 to 200 seats for spectators to watch performances put on by Department of Music and Theater, students and faculty, as well as impromptu performances. So I appreciate you asking me to come talk about the lake. Usually people want to ask questions about the project, so I'm happy to answer anything that you'd like to ask.
One here, Tammy.
I was going to say.
Louis Bannett. Quick question. After it's constructed and you're done, what will be the waters? Where will the waters come from that replenish it? And how are you going to prevent resilting?
So I guess the good news, I'll tackle the silting question first. So when we did our study, our consulting team from Shive Hattery actually checked the depths of the sediment throughout the lake. And when we compared their results to what was measured after the dredging in 1959, or actually 1995, the additional sedimentation amount has been pretty minimal. So we feel like stabilizing the shoreline will address the sedimentation problems that we have had. So we feel pretty good about that project, or that portion of the project. And as far as the water source, we will continue to use the well that feeds the lake today. So after the project is finished and it refills, we use a groundwater well to replenish the lake throughout the year.
Yeah, hello, Tom Walsh. Your project looks great. The question I have has to do with the wildlife. I noticed many times there's quite a few Canada geese that are in the lake, and how's that impacting the swans? And then also I see students fishing too. Do you stock it?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the geese first. So the geese and the swans actually, I'll say they coexist. The swans will actually chase the geese away, and they're pretty territorial. But if you've paid attention over the last few decades, the amount of geese that are resident geese in Iowa has grown. So if you go out to Ada Hayden, you'll see huge flocks of geese. Lake LaVerne's no different. I actually counted one winter day, almost 1,000 geese on Lake LaVerne. So managing the geese is one of the things that in that adaptive management plan that I talked about, that's one of our key points, because not only are they messy and kind of ornery, they actually contribute quite a bit to the phosphorus content of the water. So one of the things that we're looking at is different ways that we can manage the geese, and part of the design helps us do that. That north shoreline, being able to get people down to the water level is a goal, but we also are reinforcing that shoreline with large outcropping limestone blocks, which are difficult for the geese to climb up. Right now it's basically a grassy lawn that they can walk up and down. So we're gonna control them using that slope with that material. We're also gonna change the landscape around the lake a little bit. So instead of it being mown all the way to the edge, we're gonna introduce a little bit taller native vegetation that makes them a little more uncomfortable because they can't necessarily see what's in that tall grass. They become a little wary. That's a portion of the project, or what the project can do. We're still gonna have to do some work with the DNR's cooperation to manage geese, and that might mean harassing them. We have a staff member who is licensed to manage goose nests so that we don't have recurring growing populations of resident geese on the lake. But it'll be a continuing problem that we'll have to work with.
Randy Olson, Iowa Limestone Producers Association. I enjoyed the presentation. I was intrigued by your plan to have a clean out area on the southeast corner. Is that something that is common on public access lakes like this? It seems like a great novel approach. I wonder if there's examples of it that you've mimicked for this plan.
Our lake is unique because it's fairly small, and everything gets concentrated in that one corner. So over the years, it just sort of builds up. So it's something I think that we've struggled with over the years, but it's probably not something that's feasible on most. You kind of have to have the right situation for it to be a practical solution.
Where does all the sediment go once you've dredged it?
We had long conversations about what to do with 1,000 truckloads of soil that starts out really almost like pudding. In the end, we decided that the contractor can figure that out for themselves. We don't, at this moment, we don't know where it's going. The project bid last week, so we're just in the process of awarding the contract. We'll start to have conversations with the contractor, but one of the requirements is for them to provide us documentation of where the sediment's going to go and that it's going to follow all the applicable regulations from the state. The good news is we did test the sediment as part of during the study and learned that it doesn't have any hazardous wastes or chemicals, even though, it's with that sediment probably being there for decades. Some of the pesticides and things that were used to control vegetation in the past weren't, necessarily the best products, things that we wouldn't be able to use today or we choose not to use today. So there might be a little bit of residual chemicals in there, but nothing that met the EPA's requirements levels.
Hi, Allison Walter. I grew up in the South Campus neighborhood and spent many days ice skating on Lake LaVerne. Will that be an option again during the winter?
So one of the things that happened when we introduced the aeration system was that we now have open water and thinner ice. Interestingly, since the swans were gone, we didn't run the aeration last winter. So the ice actually froze a little bit more solid. That helped with the geese population because there wasn't open water. It pushed the geese to other places. We're not sure if we're going to put aeration back after the project. We're hoping that the increased depth will be able to manage the oxygenation in the water without aeration, but we're going to wait and see after the project is completed to see what that looks like. It's a question still to be determined, I guess. I think, yeah. Yep. So they'll stay in place, but there will be some closures during construction. So the south end of Morrill Road at the kind of the entrance to the Union area, that'll be closed as one of the exit places for the contractor to move the materials in and out. And then on the north side of the road, or north side of the lake, Union Drive, will get shifted. There's 2 lanes of traffic with 1 lane of parking. We're going to take the south lane closest to the lake and allow the contractor to use that to get materials. Tons of limestone will be easier to move from that area than from the southeast corner. So shift the traffic onto those 2 lanes and just keep 2-way traffic, but just shift it a little bit. Exactly. Yeah, we did have discussions about closing permanently sections, but that's really a difficult solution to resolve long term.
I'm Merlin Hove. Can you go over the bridge again? Go back to the picture of the bridge.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm really wondering what that'll look like.
Yeah. So this is a sketch of what an early concept of what that bridge will look like. We haven't started designing the details on the bridge yet. Or the amphitheater. We're just getting into that. We wanted to get the first phase bid and see how that might impact budget before we moved into the design too seriously. I think I shorted, you were asking about wildlife and fish. There are fish in the lake, and we will stock it again after we're done.
Great. Oh,
Warren? That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for getting the word out.
yeah. So for those of you on Zoom, and if you didn't hear Warren, he just said there's plenty of opportunities still to give to the foundation to support this project with lots of naming opportunities.
And, so we've identified kind of the improvements. One of the things that is visible in the slide that we're not planning currently to do is the idea of a little outdoor, kind of an outdoor classroom pavilion. We're going to plan for that, but not complete it in this phase. So maybe in the future that might be something that's added. It's outside of the kind of the shoreline, so it's something that we could easily plan for now and add later. The other thing that we continually talk about raising funds for is endowing the maintenance of the lake. As we continue to deal with things like geese and implement that adaptive management plan, it's always important to think about how we fund that and being able to keep the investment that we're putting into the lake now attractive for more than 30 years, hopefully, but for at least that next 30 years before that next kind of cycle of improvements is needed.
Great. I just have one comment to add. If you could move the polar plunge back, that would be great, because right now it's outside my office, and I hear screaming from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every time somebody hits the water. In the courtyard, it's in the court. They set it up in the courtyard between Hilton, Stevens, and Sheeman. So we'll
see what we can do.
That would be awesome. What a great memory for Greek Week to be in Lake LaVerne, not in a temporary body of water. So thank you, Chris. Let's give Chris a round of applause. All right. Thank you again. Let's go ahead and get the four-way test up. Of all the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And have fun.